Pleased to welcome to the program Winnipeg Jets forward. He's a winger sometimes. He's a center sometimes. He's a renaissance man. Vlad Namestnikov joins us on the show. Vlad, thanks for joining us. How are things?
Things are good. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. We appreciate you giving us some time to talk to our audience, talk about the offseason, talk about, I guess, really, we'll start with the big decision that you made, which is re-signing in Winnipeg. It's a 2-year contract that happened on July 1st. What went into your decision? I guess we'll start with the low-hanging fruit, and then we'll see where the interview takes us from there. What went into your decision to re-sign in Winnipeg?
Whenever the first time I got to Winnipeg, I loved everything. I mean, amazing team, great coaches. Everyone around the rink treats you, with respect and great people overall. So it was a pretty easy decision because, July 1st is always stressful, but I was happy to sign that contract with Winnipeg and come back.
So when July 1st came and went, and when free agency opened, it took until a little bit later in the day to make that agreement, or to come to an agreement with the Jets. Were you weighing other options? Were you sort of evaluating what the marketplace had in store? Sort of maybe for our audience, take us through what an unrestricted free agency day might look like.
For me, I was just sitting on the couch, and that part of the business, your agent is on the phone, talking to other teams. But it kind of happened so quick. Winnipeg called, and I had to make that decision quick. Because free agency, you have to make that decision quick. So overall, it was very, very stressful. But at the end of the day, I'm really happy that it worked out, and I'm here for 2 more years.
Vlad, one of the things that Elliot Friedman talked about was that you were happy to come back to Winnipeg. And it was one of the things, and a lot of guys are dispelling that notion. Laurent Brossoit was just on a podcast. He talked about how Winnipeg gets a bit of a bad rap, but it's really, it's a great hockey town. Sure, it's cold. We're not going to, pretend like it isn't, but it does have a lot of other benefits that if you're, a hockey player and you want to be valued, this is a market for a lot of players.
Yeah. You're 100% right. For me, that when I saw the whiteout in playoffs, that was when I was like, wow, this is what hockey's all about. This is why you want to play hockey in front of those fans. I mean, that I had goosebumps when that happened. So yeah, as you said, it's a hockey market, great fans, they treat you well, so nothing to really complain about. Yes, it's cold, but I mean, at the end of the day, who really cares about that kind of stuff? So I'm happy to be back.
You can with a $2 million contract, you can afford a nice heavy jacket to keep you warm in the winter, right?
For sure.
When you came to Winnipeg, right around the trade deadline last year, were you familiar with any of the guys on the team in particular? Did you have any connections, guys that were sort of reaching out to you when the trade went down and talking about what you were sort of coming into, a team that had really some high peaks earlier in the year, but had maybe been in a bit of a valley and then needed that big push to get into the playoff spot?
Yeah, I played with a couple guys. I played with Sam Gagne in Detroit the year before. I played with Neil Pionk on the Rangers. So there were a couple familiar faces, but other than that, you come into the locker room, you meet everyone, and you go out there and play. For me, it was a quick turnaround. I got there, and we had a game that day. So yeah, I came in the locker room, met everyone, and hopped on the ice with them. So that's how the business works sometimes.
You can just call guys by their number until you fully learn their name when you're on the ice, right?
Exactly.
Something along those lines. I mean, that was sort of a bit of a bizarre stretch for you. You went from Tampa to San Jose, albeit quite briefly, to Winnipeg. So, that whirlwind that's going on at that point in time, how are you sort of handling that? How are you sort of navigating those waters when all those moves are happening at once?
Yeah, when I got traded from Tampa to San Jose GM called me right away and said they're going to flip me, but I didn't know where. So, I think it was like a day and a half. I was just sitting there and not knowing what was going to happen. And then Winnipeg wanted to trade, but I had to move my no trade clause to come there. So I was happy to do that. And that's how I ended up in Winnipeg.
So what went into that decision? A lot of guys, we hear it nonstop. Oh, that guy will never come here. He's got a no trade clause. That guy won't come here. He's got a no move clause, things like that. Why were you so willing to do that, contrary to what we allegedly hear from so many others?
Because I thought it was a good fit. Team was doing well. that's all you can ask for, is to play in the playoffs, which Winnipeg was in. And um, I think I knew all the coaches. I played for all the coaches, Bones in Dallas and Tampa. So that familiarity, I wanted to, to be familiar with the coaches. So, and as I said, the team was doing good, and it's a great group of guys. And, we proved that down the stretch there and made the playoffs.
Vlad, Drew talked about it a little bit off the top, said you're sometimes center, sometimes a winger. Do you have a preference? I know sometimes guys don't care, but do you have a preference where you play positionally?
Honestly, no. I came in the league as a centerman, but when I got traded to the Rangers, I kind of had my, troubles and had to kind of move to the wing and learn that game. But overall, it doesn't really matter where I play. Wherever the coaches see me, I'll gladly fill in and do my best at that position.
Vlad Namestnikov is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Vlad, you talk about the importance of familiarity with Rick Bowness and some of the coaching staff. Is that sort of maybe an underrated factor in a player's decision making? Knowing what sort of situation they're setting foot in, knowing the coaching staff, knowing what's expected of them. Is that maybe more of a factor than people really put an emphasis on?
I think so. For me personally, it was a big factor. As I said, I played for those guys before, and they know what player I am, and what situations I can help them in, and I think that's the key there. And as I said, I think it's very important for me personally.
And folks talk about developing chemistry. A lot of was made of your chemistry with Nikolai Ehlers. What can you say about playing with a player that dynamic? Sometimes folks can describe him as a little difficult to play with because he isn't expected. He doesn't kind of run that north-south game. But what did you find playing with him?
I think he's extremely, smart. His hockey IQ's, at the very highest level, and he skates, shoots. For me, that's the perfect player to play with. I mean, I can kind of be more responsible, sit back, cover for guys like that, and chemistry sometimes clicks, sometimes it doesn't, and from that first game when they put us together, it kind of just clicked and we took off. So it's been really fun playing with them.
It's the Jets, obviously, Vlad, a team in flux this offseason. Some people have departed, some people have come into the lineup. How does that sort of, how do you navigate changes when a team is maybe turning over some of their key players, bringing in new bodies? I mean, there's going to be some new names you got to meet again this when training camp begins in September. Is that exciting to just maybe see a changing of the guard, so to speak, on a team like the Jets and playing a key role in being one of those sort of more, a new face, although you're already been here, of course, but you're now hopefully going to be here for the entirety of the next couple seasons.
Yeah, it's always, fun meeting the new guys on the team. So, I mean, obviously you're familiar with them playing against them, but, from what I heard, they're great guys, and hopefully they can help the team. And, from playing against them, it's been, they're two-way players, all of them, and great defensively and can chip in offensively. So I think that's a great addition to the team, and hopefully we can gel together and do good.
You talk about them being two-way players and defensively responsible, and really the defensive responsibility side of the game here in Winnipeg has been a topic of concern for a number of years. Not strictly the defense, but the forwards and the defense and how everybody works together. When you see the team sort of bringing in players that have a reputation for that defensive responsibility, do you feel as though that's becoming a bigger point of emphasis heading into next year, that it is the 200-foot game, as the cliche goes, and you need to be responsible in your own end before you can look to make offense in the opponent's end?
Yeah, I think if you look around the league, the last couple of years, I think the league's kind of going toward that way, that more defensive hockey that wins you games, and it's not as high scoring anymore. And I think in playoffs, especially, that's the most important part. That's whoever plays the best defense wins, pretty much. So, I'm sure these guys will definitely help with that, and it's exciting to see for sure.
Is that something you're paying attention to as a member of this Jets team for the next 2 seasons? Do you pay attention to what's happening with the team, or is it kind of outside noise, or does the team discuss that as a group? I know there's obviously group chats that go on. How do you kind of approach what's happening with the team when you're not in the season?
sometimes you see it online on Instagram, like who signs and whatnot. But for the most part in the summer, I try to stay away from all that stuff. Obviously, during free agency, you're looking at all the who's signing where. But other than that, I try to get away from that and just enjoy the summer.
Vlad Namestnikov, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, talking to the Winnipeg Jets forward. He signed a 2-year contract extension with the Winnipeg Jets on July the 1st. Vlad, the playoff series against the Vegas Golden Knights obviously didn't go the way you wanted it to go. The franchise wanted it to go. The fan base wanted it to go. Do you ever sit back and say, if we hadn't had the litany of injuries that the team suffered during that playoff series, things could have been different? Or do you feel, given that Vegas ended up winning the cup, that there was, a reasonable margin between the Jets and the Golden Knights in that series?
I don't think there was that big of a difference, to be honest. I mean, the first 4 games that we were right there, it's hockey. And so sometimes things don't go your way and another team just kind of takes off. But other than that last game, I thought we were in it, and we were right there with the Knights. So it sucks to know them going all the way and seeing them win, but you kind of have to move past that now and focus on the new season and what we can do better this year.
Vlad, what is your routine for the postseason once that is? So, for example, when you guys lost against the Vegas series, what do you watch the playoffs much, or do you just try and get away from hockey a little bit and then kind of tune back in, maybe at the conference finals or the Stanley Cup finals?
I did watch the finals a little bit, but other than that, I didn't really watch too much of it. I mean, you're upset, you're angry, and you kind of want to get away from hockey for a little bit. But yeah, the finals I did watch a little bit.
When we were trying to set up this interview, Vlad, I was working with Scott Brown, of course, of the Jets, director of communications. And he was saying that, in the mornings you're not available because you're on the ice and you're training and everything else. And the mornings in my world are like 3 or 4 hours long. So maybe take our audience through sort of what an average off-season training session looks like for you. Keep in mind, usually my training sessions last a solid 15 minutes before I'm back on the couch with a bag of chips.
Yeah, you wake up. I'm at the gym at 9, 30-minute stretch, warm up, and then hour and a half workout. So you're there for about 2.5 hours sometimes. And then, I'm lucky my ice sessions are right across the street. So kind of run over there and you're on the ice for another hour and a half. And that's pretty much your day. Then get home, eat, sleep.
Golf a little bit like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Are you on the ice with other players, or are you just one-on-one with a trainer when you're on your on-ice sessions?
Some days it's one-on-one. Some days it's with the guys that work out at my gym. There's Cam Fowler, Max Jones, Jordan Oysterley, Alex DeBrincat. There's a bunch of local guys that are in the league, so it's pretty easy to find ice here.
I hope you guys are making Alex buy a little bit after you sign that big contract.
Yeah.
Vlad, is there an sense of excitement maybe with this group now? You've turned the page. Playoffs are well behind you now, and you get obviously your summer training is starting to ramp up across the league. So there's that sense of optimism. Now every team is optimistic. A lot of teams think that they can take that next step, but there have been a lot of changes here in Winnipeg, and it looks like there's going to be some familiarity. Mark Scheifele looks like he's going to be sticking around. Connor Hellebuck the same. So if it is that same group with these additions, is there a sense of optimism with the team as to what kind of damage you guys can do next season?
Yeah, definitely. Now it's, fresh start for everyone. So, yeah, a lot of guys are staying and we got a lot of new guys. So it's going to, maybe take a little bit of time for everyone to gel, but at the end of the day, everyone's excited. And, last year you saw how much success Winnipeg had. So I think with the new additions, we can even do more damage.
How do you build on that success? I think that was sort of part of the, and you weren't here for that part necessarily, but, the team had that success early in the year and they were flying high, and then, it started to dwindle a little bit. How do you maintain sort of that same level, or at least a pretty standard level throughout the course of the year when the games get quote unquote harder and crunch time develops, throughout the course of the 82 game season?
I think you just got to stay focused throughout the whole year. I mean, sometimes you're going to have ups and downs, but that's, it's a hard league to play. So you're obviously going to have those ups and downs, but when you do, you have to kind of, climb out of those downs and climb up. So as I said, there's a lot of new good additions. So hopefully we can quickly gel and take off from the first game.
Vlad, you've played in this league a long time. You know a lot of these players. Was there anybody when you got to Winnipeg that jumped out at you in terms of a skill set, and you were like, "Wow!" When I'm actually practicing with this guy and playing with this guy's skills are kind of off the charts. I wasn't anticipating just how good they were.
I mean, there's a bunch of superstars on the team. I mean, you look at Kyle Connor, his shot, and Mark Scheifele, his skill set and his vision. You look at Morrissey on D, what he can do on that side of the ice, and dance around guys. So, yeah, you look at their work ethic, and it just surprises you, and that's how it should be. And guys look up to those guys, and that's how it should be.
Vlad, you've spent the majority of your career, I think with the exception of, let me do some quick math, 20, 35, 44 games you've played in the Western Conference, not including the playoffs. So you spent the majority of your career in the East. What was the big difference you noticed, if there was one, when moving from an Eastern, where the majority of your games are played against the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference?
I think the travel was the biggest part. It's longer flights. You spend more time on the plane. So I think that's the biggest difference. But hockey wise, I think it's all teams are pretty much the same way now. Everyone plays, that, defensive style and doesn't give up much. So yeah, I think the travel is the biggest part.
And I guess the travel is inevitable. It's one of those things you can't make the distance between Winnipeg and Los Angeles any shorter. But do you do anything personally to try and sort of mitigate the impact of that travel, or the team and the sleep science and all sort of those new approaches that are at least probably relatively new in the last decade or so?
Yeah, on the plane, I usually try to sleep right when I get on it. Honestly, whenever we take off, I kind of just doze off. But if I can't sleep, I usually read or watch TV shows or movies. Nothing really out of the ordinary.
Vlad, you've been in pro hockey now since you graduated from London Knights, I think about 10 or 11 years already. So are you at the point in your career, like, how has already 10 or 11 years elapsed, and now I'm kind of at the midpoint of my career?
Yeah, time flies. It feels like it started yesterday. I have a little brother that's 19 years old. He's kind of making his way into the pro hockey right now. So I'm telling him, you got to enjoy, every day, because it does fly, and, it gets up to you.
Vlad Namestnikov, forward for the Winnipeg Jets. We appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. When do you make your way to Winnipeg? What's the rest of the summer sort of look like for you approaching training camp?
I'll probably spend another month here, skating, working out, and then head to Winnipeg. And I haven't really talked to any of the guys when they usually go over there. So I'm sure there's plenty of ice and workouts there too. So I'll figure that out.
Vlad, just one quick addition. There's a lot of Russian-born or guys who are there's Danny Zhilkin, who was born in Russia but grew up in Canada. Do you ever take on a bit of a leadership role with those types of guys? Because they're in the organization. They're going to be playing for the Moose, Nikita Chibrikov, Danny Zhilkin, Dmitry Kuzmin, who's Belarusian, but that sort of idea, these young guys, because, I think too many people, and I know you basically grew up in North America, but for a lot of guys coming over here, people take for granted how difficult that transition is. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as an important thing for you to be able to take a role with these guys who, language could be a bit of a barrier for them?
Yeah, for sure. I've went through this with, the Russians on Tampa. Whenever they first came over, they couldn't speak English. They just don't know what life is like here. So I've been helping those guys, and if these guys need help, I'm here, and I'll for sure help with anything they need. So, but it's not easy coming from another country with not knowing the language and all that stuff. So yeah, but I'm here to help. I'm happy to help with that kind of stuff. So
excellent. Vlad Namestnikov, thank you for joining us on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Vlad, best of luck with the rest of the summer, whatever fun stuff you have in store, and we'll see you in Winnipeg for training camp in the not so distant future.
Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. Thanks, Vlad.
Thanks, Vlad.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.